So we can officially start talking about D&D horror stories.
Yeah, let's hear it. What do you got?
So first, it's so funny how you're so blessed to not have any horror stories. That's the first thing I want to get out of the way.
It is unusual, yeah.
Because I feel like most people online have at least one story.
Yeah.
Have at least one story of a bad player or a bad DM.
I've been very lucky.
Or a bad experience they had at a convention. Stuff like that. But for me, I want to talk about... Because before I met Steve, I was jumping from group to group, playing board games. And one of the people I play board games with, her name's Lizzie. She introduced me to Steve and his group, and that was the best thing ever. Because before that, I had played D&D with another group of people that I knew from high school. And the DM from that group, everyone else, all the players were great. I love those guys to death. We had, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, was it 5 players including me? Hold on. Oh. Yeah, so it was 6 players total, right? And 1 DM.
Okay.
And we were playing 4th edition. So this was when 4th edition was still big. So I want you to think about all the bad things a DM could do. And this is what that guy did. Looking back.
He come to the table in his underwear?
No.
Well, I got one.
No, his hygiene was okay. But this guy was 100% a DM that should have wrote a book. Problem. Because he had a story and he had characters in his story. But he would always focus. We were just pawns in a story. We were just along for the ride. Because he would always focus so much on his certain OC NPCs. And he would be so favorited to those people that they could never die. They could never have a bad moment. They would always have a great moment. And he would insert himself as characters into his game. And he would come in and save the players, us, if something bad was going to happen.
Wow.
So he would just be like, oh, don't worry. I forgot the good name of the character. I think it was like the Black Lotus or the Black something, but Black Mamba maybe. But he or she would come in and just be like, oh, don't worry. I saved you guys from the threat or whatever.
Oh, my goodness.
So, and whenever one of us would have something interesting to say or do, he would take that, just be like, yeah, sure, your character does a little bit of that, but then he'll quickly go back to his story. It was so, and I didn't realize how bad he was at the time because this was my first experience, my first real experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I just thought this is how D&D was.
Well, also, it may be, how experienced was he? Because I think
he'd been playing for years. That's why I thought that's why I thought he was fine.
Okay.
But again, I'm pretty sure the people in that group, he was the only experience they had too.
Okay.
So we didn't really have a lot of options. But it wasn't just that his storytelling. It was also the way he would tell the story. This guy would go on these huge monologues and I would just tune out so much. Like he would start the story and he would be talking about the government and he definitely had everything laid out. But he would talk about the government, he would talk about social intrigue, he would talk about people in the city. He would talk so much about everyone else besides the players. And
figures.
But another thing he would do is that he would always invite a guest and it'd always be his flavor of the month girlfriend. So he would always bring over a girl that month that he was seeing, sit her at the table right next to him.
So he could help her.
But also periodically he would reach his hand out and fondle her hair as they were playing. And I told him, man, do you have to do that at the table? That's just, I don't know. And especially because he knew how I was with my relationships back then. I was super shy.
Okay.
And so I almost feel like he was flaunting this in front of us, basically. because a lot of the other guys at the table, we were not really that popular with the girls in high school. So
this was in high school.
Yeah, this was in high school.
Okay.
So I feel like he would do that on purpose just to gloat, sort of, and maybe himself too. But that was so bad.
So some of that I might chalk up to youth. Depends on how the guy has matured since then, right? You've told me about this guy, and I thought it was like right before you met us.
No.
Which would have been in your late 20s, maybe.
No, this was pretty much right at the end of high school and a little bit after.
Okay.
So 2005. Well, I graduated 2003. So this was around 2005, 2006.
I bet you if that guy's still gaming that he's gotten better.
No. he does have a kid now. So maybe he's matured a little bit. But he loves to hold grudges.
But back then, 2005, 2006, the thing about the gaming community at the time, and I wasn't really in it, right? But I still think I can say this. There wasn't as much exposure to D&D in the broader media. And that meant gamers would really only meet each other basically IRL. I don't know how, like, maybe people were using Craigslist, but for the most part, probably just friends of friends or meeting up at a game store. And because of that, there wasn't a ton of exposure between different games. And I've heard old school players talk about this a lot, where basically if you went to someone else's house to play D&D with a group of people you didn't know, it was like a whole different game. Because nobody got to see on YouTube and Twitch and stuff how other people play.
Yeah. And that's why I thought this was just normal stuff.
Sure.
And granted, we did have fun. There were some great moments.
Yeah.
But playing with you and playing with other people online, I've realized now that he was definitely steering the ship hardcore.
Yeah.
Like he was in control of the ship. And he was railroading us, 100% railroad. Like we were, if there was like something, because I know there was many times where me as my player, I had two characters in this campaign. My first was a changeling, I believe, changeling sorcerer maybe. And right away, the second or fourth session, he killed that character. And it's because I confronted his big bad at the beginning. To confront the big bad in his office.
Yeah.
And he closed the door and he just said my character got killed by the big bad. Didn't even give me a chance to fight or anything.
I learned your lesson, didn't you?
Yeah, but it was kind of like a lame lesson. He could have at least let me fight him to see the power level, and then maybe gave me a chance to run away.
Yeah. I would have given you a chance to run away.
Give me a chance to run away, but he was just like straight up no roll, no nothing, just he hits you and you're dead. That's not the way you do it.
No, I agree with you on that. But what I was getting at with the isolation of different gaming tables back then is not too long after that, like we started seeing Acquisitions Incorporated and Critical Role and other things start to go big. And now we're at an age where there's hundreds of them, including ours.
Yeah.
And this guy must have seen other games by now and watched other GMs talking about how you do it. And now, if he's still gaming, then he's been exposed to that stuff. And he either is just a total hater and no one will game with him, or he's gotten better. Or he doesn't game anymore. Those are the three options.
He definitely doesn't run. He definitely doesn't run D&D with us anymore. I think he does with his coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
But
you still know this guy?
Vaguely. We had a falling out because I couldn't put up with him anymore.
Okay.
And I tried to reconcile with him years later, but he was so stubborn that he didn't want to do it.
Oh, interesting.
But so we're kind of just like not really friends anymore. And it sucks because it was kind of like a situation where you have a fan group and that one person's like one of the key pillars of that group.
But he sucks.
So if I hang out with that group of people, he can't be there.
Right.
And if he's there, I can't be there. basically.
That's too bad.
And so, but again, that's why it was such a blessing when I found you guys, because I was like, yes, I can finally play D&D again and not have to worry about this guy being around.
Yeah.
Because sometimes someone else in the group would DM and it'll be a totally different story.
Right.
Like he would actually be, and again, another thing he would do back then, he would, if any of us try to DM, he would criticize us a lot after. And it wouldn't be like the fun kind of criticism. It would be like, oh, well, I guess you did an okay job, you know. Like he wouldn't be that encouraging. Like he would always put himself higher than us. As you can tell, I'm still salty.
Salty.
I'm still salty.
No, see, I don't have any horror stories because, like we were talking about the other day.
I got to tell you about players.
Oh, yeah, okay. Tell me players.
Well, okay. So there was two groups I used to play with this guy. It would be our main group, and it would be like a different group he had on the side. Right. So I played with that other group on the side, and there's two events I want to talk about. There's one where one of the players he was younger than me at the time. I guess he was just a young guy, so he was doing funny things. But there was a moment where his character gets thrown out a window, so he decides to act out this in real life. So he gets up from the table. He runs
on the table.
No. He gets up from the table.
Okay.
He runs to the other side of the room behind the couch, and then he runs and jumps over the couch towards us and falls through the cushions and everything, acting out like he just like went through a window. And I appreciate his enthusiasm.
Sure.
But then he could proceed to lay on the floor and pretend that he was knocked out for the rest of the game. For like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like,
that just sounds like a teenager.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that was just a teenager. But looking back, I was like, oh.
That's funny, man.
And the other moment I want to say is when I was there for a live breakup.
Oh, come on.
Where
some people broke up at the table?
Yeah. So remember how I told you his flavor of the month girlfriend? Mm-hmm. I was there for a live breakup where she was playing as a character and we were playing a different setting called I think it was Thieves World, maybe. And the girl's character, she was playing like a fairy race character, a small fairy. Mm-hmm. And in the first episode, she dies. And he gave her multiple chances to survive.
Right.
But I felt like she was trying to, like, maybe they had a fight before that. So she was trying to egg him on. So then he was like, oh, you know what? A rock falls on your character and your character dies. And then she just blows up in the middle of the table and be like, you see, I didn't want to play this game anyway. And she starts like hitting the table and he's like trying to calm her down. And we're all just sitting there awkward. And then she hits over the GM screen. And she like runs out, and I'll never forget that. It was such an awkward, weird moment.
That's so dumb.
And then we proceeded to play without her for like another hour.
Yeah. Well, she made her bed.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, were you going to say?
What was I going to say? So yeah, like we were talking about the other day, I think if everyone involved is like coming into it with goodwill, with good intent, then even when there are personality conflicts, you can get them worked out pretty easily. And that's just an emotional maturity thing, which it doesn't surprise me at all that was lacking in a high school game. Now, some people never develop emotional maturity. And unfortunately, it seems that in certain segments, there's quite an overlap between that group of people and the group of people who play tabletop role-playing games. But I have been lucky enough not to live in that overlap much. We've had minor conflicts in our groups, and they've never really blown up. I would say there's a guy I used to game with, like way back at the start, who he GM'd for us a few times. And it was a little bit of that new GM thing that you were saying, like railroading, like trying to tell your story instead of everyone else's story. I mean, I will tell you flat out, that's how I thought it worked when I first started GMing.
Me too, based off that first guy.
Right. But then to a greater extent, this other guy also did, and kind of also brought in his he had a lot of experience playing video games. And so he would play like a lot of RPG video games, and he would do like cutscenes in the middle of his D&D sessions. And I'd be like, hey, I'm going to interrupt him. I'm not going to let him finish because this guy's just monologuing at us.
Yeah.
But he'd be like, for no reason, you can't move. You have to let him finish.
Yeah, you have to let him finish.
And it was just like, and he never learned the rules. And it was just like, but here's like, I'm still friends with that guy because the result of all of that was not a big fight. It was, he decided it wasn't for him and didn't keep playing. And that's it. And that's totally fine. And then I'd love to game with him again someday. But then there's also like, yeah, thank you. We live by an airport. Yeah.
But speaking to that, I have had in that same group with the bad GM, I did have two players that were complete opposite of each other.
Mm-hmm.
One was a cheater player. He loved to roll the dice and then pick it up real quick and be like, oh, that was a 20.
That's terrible.
He loved to do that. He did that so much that we made him roll in front of us. Like
okay.
And
so I have kind of an unpopular opinion on dice fudging, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it matters.
And players?
I'll tell you why. The only person you're cheating is yourself.
I know, but you're kind of cheating the group.
That's true.
You're not cheating the group. How are you cheating the group?
Well, because you're always getting criticals.
So that doesn't hurt them. That helps them.
I know, but sometimes what I mean is sometimes the story calls for like ups and downs.
That I agree with. And that's why I say you're only cheating yourself. First of all, if you do it all the time, people know, right? Yeah, like you're just describing.
But you're not going to just let it happen.
You're not playing against the other players. You're playing against fictional villains, right? So the dice are tools.
They are PvPs sometimes, though.
There sometimes are PvPs, and if someone's cheating in that, then fuck that person, right? But you're there to tell a story together, and the dice are tools to provide randomness in the story. And sometimes people get so frustrated with how bad their dice are rolling that they just really want this one story point, and then they'll fudge the dice. And I mean, I don't do it because I've learned better, right? Like my first game, I never rolled higher than a 4 on the die, and I was having a miserable time until I made the adjustment that my character isn't the hero here. You know what I thought back to was actually the DVD commentary on Ghostbusters, talking about how the actors in the scene, the reason that movie is so great is because all these comedic actors were constantly giving the spotlight to each other, right? Mm-hmm. All of them were trying as hard as they could to make their cohorts look good. Mm-hmm. And that makes the movie good. And so when I built this awesome, powerful Minotaur character that I wanted to just stomp through this city and tear everyone up, and then proceeded to never roll higher than a 4 on a D20 for the first like 2 sessions, I was miserable until I realized I can still have fun if I'm as big a fan of the other characters as I am of my own character. So I made that internal adjustment early. And for that reason, I never fudged the dice, even though early on I was tempted to, right? But I get why someone might, if they're just so pissed off and they're like, God, my character is just losing constantly, and I'm not having fun unless my character gets a win right now. I get it. I'm not saying people should do it. I'm not telling you fudge the dice. I'm telling you, if someone at your table might be fudging dice, let them. Who cares? Unless it's obvious and it's ruining the fun for everyone. But your guys are just there to tell a story. And what I think, well, let me finish one second. What I think is what fudging the dice really is a player communicating, this situation is so bad that I'm not having fun right now. And if that's the case, okay, tell the story the way you want to tell the story. That's my unpopular opinion. No one's ever agreed with me about it, but that's what I think.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of fudging dice, but I can see where you're coming from, Steve.
I think the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to talk to the guy or girl and let them know that it's not about really what you roll. It's about telling the story.
Yeah.
So if your character is failing a lot at this situation, it's more like a character development kind of thing.
Right.
And that's what I would try to do.
No, yeah, I agree. But I would talk to them later after the game. I'd be hey, we all know you did that. And like, I get it. But the real way to make the adjustment so that you can still have fun is to understand this character isn't you, right? It's a person you're telling a story about.
And what I mean by cheating the group, I just mean everyone else is playing by the rules.
Yeah.
So you should be respectful and also play by the rules.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, you should be. I'm talking more to the.
It's kind of like we're all playing baseball, and one person is not playing the game correctly.
Right, but I'm talking more to the other people at the table. Like, if someone is unless it's the kind of person, and I've never met this kind of person, but it's the kind of person who just fudges every roll no matter what. What the fuck is that? But fun. Yeah, like fun. I don't get that. But I think
I can understand if it's like maybe one or two rolls.
Yeah.
That's why I appreciate systems that have like a luck mechanic that let you re-roll,
that let you push it or
push it or re-roll, because then that can be the moment where you're like, okay, this is a bad roll, but I'm going to push it or I'm going to spend luck or whatever. That's why I appreciate stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I had another point I was going to make, but I forgot it. But yeah, I mean, you understand what I'm saying. It's just like it comes down to. Oh yeah, this is what I was going to say. It's just like I see people make entire YouTube videos about how to deal with cheating at your table, and I'm like, you can't cheat at D&D because it's not a winner or loser game. It's a group storytelling exercise, and I would rather not play than not trust grown adults to read numbers to me off of a die. And it's just, I've never once worried about cheating at the table. If you cheated and I didn't catch you, good for you. I hope you feel good about yourself that night. Like, and that's the other thing is like, I talked earlier about if people are coming into it with good intent, you're not going to have, you're not going to have big blowups at the table usually, right? And I think this is the same thing. If someone's coming into the game with good intent and then they fudge a die roll, they're going to feel bad about it later and they're going to correct themselves.
Well, hopefully,
because they're going to know they robbed themselves and the group of what could have been a more interesting storytelling experience.
I'm just saying, because you might not have a problem with them fudging dice because you realize that they're going to probably learn their lesson later.
Yeah.
But the problem is that other people on the table are going to notice.
If they notice it could be a problem.
And then they're going to come to you and be like, hey, this person's fudging all the time.
Yeah.
They're taking away from my character, all this stuff, And
again, I'm speaking from a privileged position because I've never played with anyone.
I've dealt with cheaters.
I've never played with anyone who didn't come to the table with good intent. I've played with people that I suspect fudged a dice roll now and then, but I've never played with anyone that I didn't trust at the table.
Like problem players, I've dealt with almost all kinds.
Yeah.
I dealt with the cheater, which I just said, and now my second one, I've dealt with hardcore meta players who create their character as strong as possible and will always try to, before you do an action, they will say their piece and be like, actually, you should do this instead because it's best for this situation.
I've played with people who used to be like that and no longer do it.
Yeah.
Mia, I see you're live with us right now still. What are your thoughts on what we've been discussing?
Have you ever dealt with problem players?
It hasn't been a real problem for me in the past, no. But as a player, I had a GM that was a bit of a difficult deal.
Yeah.
How so?
It wasn't so much the gameplay aspect of it as like he would be the one that would zone out. He would do is like he would set the scene and everything, and then he would just sort of like disappear into the background and kind of like be tugging on his long hair, and you would like, this is what I do, and and you do all this, and then he's like, what?
Oh man,
that's interesting. So
and
it's like
he was also he was a pretty good dungeon GM, in setting up the scenes and the descriptions. But yeah, we would lose him sometimes. But he was also very grumpy about never giving up the seat. He, as much as I would want to run something, he's like, no. So.
That's interesting. Yeah, but you've always played with pretty good players. Man, you guys are so lucky.
Yeah,
good. I mean, as far as like role-playing games and stuff, yeah. But board games, I've run into some serious cheats and like angry people who will get up and kick the table and send pieces flying and just fuck up pardon my language, fuck up the rest of the game for like the three of us that are still trying to play and they've been like, they lost out.
During that year where I was playing board games religiously, I ran into a couple of those people too. I ran into a situation where we were playing like some of these board games take like 6-8 hours to play. Some of these hardcore ones. And I went to one where a guy left like maybe 4 hours into a game. It was just like, fuck you guys. And he just left.
Yeah.
And I was just like, we still got 4 hours to play here. I was just like, damn.
Yeah, I've been through that. Now, and I think also maybe part of the reason that I have been so blessed is because all of my games have been my games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like not necessarily me as GM, but me hosting, me organizing the event. So I'm already selecting people I want to be with, right? So that's part of it. And in our very first D&D game, Edward was the new factor. Edward, who played with us last night in Beyond, he was the new person that I barely knew that came to the table. And I just got lucky with him. But that's kind of the only time. Everyone else was someone I already knew or someone that a friend brought, like you.
So lucky.
Yeah. And there were a couple times during lockdown when I joined online games that I didn't stay in because I'm just like, I don't have anything super bad to say about any of the people, but it was like, this is not a good fit. Like these people are playing Roll20. We're using Discord for voice. They won't turn their cameras on, so I can't see who I'm playing with.
I dealt with that too.
That makes me crazy. Like, turn your camera on.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, that's fine. Some people are camera shy, but then also like there was no one interested in role playing or narrative. Like we were doing Dungeon of the Mad Mage or whatever, the under mountain thing, and it was just all mechanics. It was all
no role play.
No role play. There was one guy that was really kind of rules lawyering, and like I left before it became a real problem, you know. But I was just like, I can't get into this game because nobody else seems to care or like the same things about D&D that I like. And I suspect that had I stayed in that group, I would have seen maybe some relational issues later, because these people didn't seem interested in relating to each other personally.
Yeah, they just wanted to play the game.
Yeah, they just wanted to play the game, and to them the game was exploration, combat, no role play. If I spoke in character, I had to do a voice or they didn't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, it's just about noon. Mia, how are we feeling about getting started?
I'm good to go whenever. Yeah.
All right.
I'm good.
What about the other players?
Well, I need to get in there and get the call set up. So, I'll put this on break. We'll see everyone as fast as we can in the other room for Vieja Escuela Pulp.
Okay. All right. I'm going to disconnect from this voice chat and see you over there.
All righty.